Hello again, guys. It is Free 700. We are back, and this time more disgusting than ever. Like, look at this skaven pestilence waifu. I would slurp up that yummy green goo between her thighs any day. So, you clicked on the video and you want to know, what is the Red Pox of Warhammer Fantasy? Well, you see, the Red Pox is actually a really cool situation that I actually enjoyed a lot. Because, well, I do like Bretonnia, and anytime Bretonnia does something, I'm always like, that's amazing. Whereas anytime the Empire does something, I'm like, of course they fucking win. Of course they react that way. I don't know why, it's just the way my brain is wired. I just like Bretonnia a lot more than the Empire. So either way, the Red Pox, what is it? Well, you see, about maybe 1,000 years before this event happened, there was the Black Death, also known as just the Plague. And what that was when Clan Pestilence basically almost wiped out the Empire. Because you see, the Empire is a more liberal society than most people realize. Like, you can have the commoners mess around with the nobility and exist in the same living space as one another, and that's fine. They're almost like a normal society, you know? Like a modern day society where your rank and your heritage doesn't really matter too much. It does matter, and in some areas you will get your ass kicked because you're not a noble, but at the same time, you know, they're living in the same space. So therefore, if one of them gets a disease, it's definitely going to affect the other. And this is where we see the Black Death. This led to the emperor known as Skaven Slayer, but later he got his name rechanged to Rat Catcher. Either way, what happened was the Empire lost about half of its people to this plague. That is a lot. That is crippling. There's some guesstimations that even say it's up to 3/4 of the entire Empire's population, but I wouldn't go that high. I would just definitely say probably about half of them died. And then on top of that, they're dealing with the Skaven invasion. And the Skaven invasion was the craziest part about that, because this was the first time the Skaven openly attacked the Empire. They've never done that before. But because the Empire was so weak, they decided to take up arms and attack. Didn't work. Got their asses kicked. Now here we are to the Red Pox. The Red Pox is a bit of a continuation of that disease, but this time it's modified. And the reason why it's called Red Pox is because it causes severe hemorrhaging. It causes much longer symptoms than the Black Death. The Black Death was more instantaneous. It was more expeditious. As a certain teacher once said, if you're going to mess around with death, if you're going to fuck with it, may as well do it expeditiously. But when it comes to the Red Pox, it is not. It's more like a week. You'll suffer and then you'll die. Now, there's no cure for it. You're fucked once you get it. And you're just going to start oozing blood out of your brain, and it's not a good situation. And the suffering of the victim is long. So there's a lot of demoralization here with this disease. It's very terrifying to see people just suffer and scream in agony. Now, the problem is that this disease was released in the south. It was released in Bretonnia and Telea, also Estalia. Now, Estalia and Telea were getting fucked by this disease. They were getting really ravaged. Bretonnia, on the other hand, didn't really get affected that much by it. They did get a few cities that did get attacked and raided, but they didn't lose those cities. They didn't almost lose their kingdoms. No, they were actually pretty fine. In fact, the northern part of Bretonnia was untouched by this plague. And you may wonder, why is that? Well, you have to remember Bretonnian society. What is it? Bretonnian society is heavily feudal. If I'm a nobility, why the hell would you, as a commoner, be around me? You're not allowed in my presence. In fact, travel between Bretonnian cities is heavily restricted. Like, if you're a peasant of the city Quenelle, you need to get a approval by your king or baron of that land to get permission to travel to another city. It is that restrictive and that, I would say, oppressive, but really it's just that much order is contained in Bretonnia that there's nothing a peasant can do without the king approving it. In other words, a peasant can't even die unless the king permits it. So this is where it became a bit of an issue. Also, the issue too is that Bretonnians are very hard on their peasants. They're kind of like helots in the Spartan society, where if the peasants start uprising or if the peasants are suffering, the nobility of the Bretonnians have no qualms about massacring the entire village. They really don't care. Because you see, in Bretonnian society, the cities are built around the castles. In other words, the castle, like the castle of Brigon, would be its own thing. In the city, which is where all the peasants live, they're just a bunch of shacks and hovels that are built around the castle. Because you have to remember, I'm a nobility. I do not share space with you common filth. Stay out of my walls. And the only peasants that are allowed inside my walls are peasants that I have known for generations. Because mind you, some Bretonnian lords live hundreds of years because of their blessings from the Lady of the Lake. Now, interestingly, with Bretonnia, not only are the knights unaffected by the plague, but the peasants who weren't affected are a little superstitious. Like, they're usually scared of the forest because, again, wood elves, but that attributes to every forest because, mind you, they're uneducated. They're a very superstitious lot indeed. And then you have the knights who, while they are educated, they're not quite as scientifically minded as, per se, other people. Like, a bunch of peasants may claim that there's a troll that lives inside the forest, and the knight is just going to go, I highly doubt it, but I'm going to charge in, peasants, watch me kill this troll. And it turns out it's just a moose or some shit. This is pretty much the way that Bretonnia operates. So not only was Bretonnia pretty much unaffected by the plague, interestingly enough, what also happened was the peasant mobs just started burning everything. They burned their houses, they burned other peasants, they burned fish, they burned whatever was basically, in their minds, possibly a source of contamination. Which, again, is a bit of an overreaction when you find out that the red pox is transmitted through water. But, hey, whatever, I mean, they did pretty much cure themselves of the red pox. Now, I did say there was other cities that were hit by this that were not Bretonnian, like, Mirigliano, Talea, Estalia, those southern regions. And those cities had the exact same outcome that we saw with the Empire like 700 or 1,000 years ago, where 3/4 to half of their population is just gone, just dead from the plague. And the Skaven are openly attacking both Bretonnia and the southern cities of these free cities, whatever you want to call them. Some call them border princes, whatever, but I like to call them, just by their city names. But there's so many of them, I'm kind of getting bored here of saying their names. Now, thankfully, Bretonnia from the north and the Wood Elves and even the Duke of Musalan showed up, and they all kicked the Skaven's ass. It was kind of a bloodbath for the Skaven. They got really pushed back. And it was because of this that Clan Pestilence had a really, really, I would say, negative disposition to a bunch of the other Skaven clans. Because now all the other Skaven clans are looking at Clan Pestilence like, you tricked us. You failed yet again for the Horned Rat to claim these human realms. And it became a bit of a political issue in Skaven Blight. After all, Clan Pestilence, in my opinion, is the most successful. They've done the most to destroy the world. So when you fucking fail and then all of a sudden everyone's telling you that what you did was shit, it's pretty easy to take offense to that. Now, as far as Bretonnia cares, they didn't acknowledge Skaven as a different species. They still acknowledge Skaven as a type of beastmen, but that's better than what the Empire's doing, which is just hiding all the information that Skaven are actually a thing and trying to pretend like they don't exist. So that's one thing, I guess, is that the Bretonnians do consider Skaven their own species of beastmen, but not their own individual species. They don't see the difference between them and other beastmen. And then the southern cities repopulated. Honestly, I'm more surprised that Bretonnia didn't just take them over, because that's what I would have done. And that's what it seems like Bretonnia is really good for. But at the same time, they were honor bound, like, we just came to rescue you. Now, conquering you, that would shame my honor, kind of ordeal. But besides that, that was the Red Pox. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys found it very slurpalicious, like the Skaven waifu. Besides that, see you guys next time.